So in this hour, I wanted to get to the larger question. Welcome back, by the way, to the question that nobody ever asks. And what got me thinking about this, well, two things. First of all, this is the essence of this new book that I have coming out called Threshold: The Crisis of Western Culture. And Derek Jensen published a great piece in Orion magazine. It was up on Common Dreams yesterday, commondreams.org, called Forget Shorter Showers, Why Personal Change Does Not Equal Political Change. And the point of both my book and his article, is the point that you will never hear, never, on commercial television, and you may only rarely hear on commercial radio. And that is that we have been fed a line. I don't know how to say it other than just, directly. We have been fed a line, and many of us have bought it hook, line, and sinker, that we can save the planet by recycling and putting fluorescent light bulbs in our light bulb sockets and driving a Prius. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing all those things. In fact, doing all those things is, good and positive. But the fact of the matter is, the larger issue, the fact of the matter is, that if everybody in the United States did all the things that Al Gore, who, by the way, also will not give you the solution that I'm going to talk about here today, does not address, in my opinion, the real problem. If everybody in America did the stuff that Al Gore talks about, inflate your tires, drive more fuel-efficient vehicles, use low-wattage bulbs, reduce your electricity consumption, drive half as much, use public transportation, if we all did all that stuff, if all of the consumers of America radically scaled back consumption, we would only see about a 22, I'm talking radically, we would only see a 22% reduction in carbon emissions from this country. And the reality is that if we don't reduce carbon emissions worldwide by 75%, we're screwed. We're in deep trouble. And this was, the problem that was really highlighted by yesterday's G8 meeting, where China and India basically said, hey, you guys blew a whole bunch of carbon into the air to get as rich as you are, and you're telling us now that we can't? We're not going to listen. Which brings up a whole second issue. But anyhow, the point is that it's not consumers that are driving the problem. It is our industrial society and the assumptions that it's based on. It's our way of thinking. It's our culture. It's the culture, stupid. That's my mantra here. I wrote about this in my book, Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I laid it out. It's the way the problem isn't overpopulation. The problem isn't a carbon-based economy. The problem isn't that we're spewing out radioactive waste and carcinogens left and right, and that our food is poisoned. Those are symptoms of the problem. They're all real. They're symptoms of the problem. The problem is our culture. Our culture is the collective stories we tell ourselves about who we are relative to everything else in the world. And the story that we tell ourselves is that an industrial economy, an economy that worships growth, an economy that says that the corporation should have the exact same rights as a human being, and in fact many more rights and powers, and a culture that says hierarchy and dominance is more important than cooperation, a culture that says that war is the solution, not peace, a culture that would not honor Gandhi but would honor Patton, as in General Patton. That kind of a culture is, no matter how hard we as individuals work, that kind of culture is going to screw things up. For example, water, as Derek Jensen points out. He says, let's talk water. So often here we're running out of water. So what? We're supposed to take shorter showers? Put on water-saving shower heads? It turns out that 90% of the water used by humans is not used by individual consumers. It's not used by you and me. 90% of the water that as a human race we use is used by industry and agriculture. So unless we take on industry and agriculture, the water problems of the world aren't even going to begin to get addressed. And you will not hear any major politician or major network or major news never talk about those as real issues. Energy. Kirkpatrick Sale wrote this. He said, for the past 15 years, the story has been the same every year. Individual consumption, residential by private car, and so on. This is the problem. But the problem is that it's only about a quarter of all energy is consumed by individuals in the United States. Only about a quarter. 3/4 of it is used by commercial, industrial, corporate, agribusiness, and arguably, if you toss the military in, it might be more like 80-85% of all energy in the United States is not used by people like you and me. So we could cut our energy consumption to zero. Take ourselves totally off the grid, all of us, and we still have a problem. Waste. You know, let's recycle. It's so important that we recycle. In 2005, per person waste production in the United States was 1,660 pounds. That's a hell of a lot. What percentage of that is municipal waste? That is the trash from your house and mine? 3%. The rest of it is coming from industry and from agriculture and from the military. We are looking at a situation where we're being given false choices. We're being told, well, you know, just save a little energy here and there and it'll solve all the problems of the world. It's a blame the victim thing. It's a she got raped because she was wearing that dress thing. It's a magic trick. It's don't look at the right hand while the left hand is doing something else thing. Because essentially what this kind of mentality says is that the problems of the world are caused by you and me and our habits, when in fact, and therefore we're the villains and therefore we're the ones who need to change, when in fact the ecological problems of the world, and they're very real, are the result of industrial society and military society. A militarized society. The fact that we spend $1 trillion a year on our military, the mind-boggling amounts of oil, and the single largest user of gasoline in the United States is our military. And you know, and on it goes. We are being given false choices. We're being asked to fight over little trinkets, when the real big stuff is you know, we're being told to ignore it. So I realize at a certain level this is starting to sound like I'm preaching here, and I don't want to go down there. You know, we need to inject some realism into this, and the realism, I think, is that we need to go back and frankly listen to Dwight Eisenhower, who I'll agree was, you know, part of the problem too, but listen to him when he left office, and he said, beware of the military-industrial complex, and look at the systemic problem. Look at the fact that we've got, you know, Goldman Sachs and these other very J.P. Morgan and so on. We've got the very large financial companies basically owning our government. That the solutions that we are pursuing are not solutions that are going to be real and meaningful so far. And that business as usual isn't going to make it anymore. Because they're talking about, La Nina has changed, or El Nino has changed. There's a new kind of El Nino because as the climate, as the atmosphere has deteriorated, these storms are originating farther out in the Pacific than they used to. And so they're saying that the El Nino, which is supposed to reduce the number of hurricanes, may actually increase the number of hurricanes that hit landfall out of the Atlantic because of this change in the Pacific. We need to wake up to the problem of industry.